as we speak.
All right, I see you recording. Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the, what is this, the main meeting of the Richmond Amateur Radio Club. Tonight we have a special presentation from Bruce after the business meeting, and we were hoping that someone would join us, and I don't see her yet. But anyway, let's go ahead and approve the minutes from everybody. Did everybody have a chance to see the minutes, and are there any corrections or additions to the minutes from last meeting? Okay, no comments or additions. So I'll go ahead and ask for a motion to approve minutes.
Motion.
Okay, and anyone second the motion?
I second it.
Okay, no discussion. Then I'll call for a vote. Raise your hand if you approve the minutes. Okay, anyone not approving the minutes, raise your hand. And the minutes are approved. Okay, Ken, your turn.
Okay, treasurer's report for the month. We started out with $16,550.56. We took in one dues for $20. And then we paid Bruce $15.50 for some class supplies that he needed. And we paid for our storage unit, which was $46. So the expenses going out was $61.50. So we dropped down to $16,499.06. So did pretty decent. There's more dues coming in, but they just didn't make it in last month. So
Okay. All right, anybody got any comments or questions on the treasurer's report? All right, any new members tonight?
yes, we got several. And I'll start with the easy one. Dave White, whose call sign is W4I or LLA, and he's an extra. Bernie Lawson, who is a non-ham license, but he's a GMRS license. So I won't give you that call sign because it's not a ham call sign. Then we have two more people, and I'm trying to find where we have David Ingram, WB4UR, real close, Bruce. And he is a extra. And then we have one last one, which is James William. K04QDL. And
Yes, sir.
he is, what's your license class? I just don't see it real quick.
Technician.
Technician, okay. So those are the new members that we have pending. Do I have a motion to accept?
I so
Aye.
All
Got
right,
one more, Ken.
one more?
Yeah, George.
I don't have the paperwork, George, or do,
Okay, sorry.
that's all right.
We'll go ahead and induct you
When
anyway.
when did you turn it in or send it? Is it by PayPal?
Yeah, I paid up and I signed up on the website. You have the form set up there.
Yeah.
And I signed up the same day a month ago as the meeting.
Oh, we may have caught you. Well, I may have caught you then, and
Okay,
got the paperwork and I forgot to put it in here and I put it downstairs as you are already a member. So,
okay, no problem.
George, tell us your call sign.
KC4YVE.
All righty. And add him into that count, and your license is
General.
general.
Yeah,
Okay,
passed in February.
yeah. All
Okay,
right.
then
Bravo.
I'll go ahead and ask for a motion to accept all these folks as members.
Aye.
Motion to accept.
And then I know we have one person who got new call sign or got a new license class, because she told me to please put her into the remote station so she could use the new privilege. So you want to identify yourself?
Yeah, that's me, Debbie Howard.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
What
Thanks.
did you, what are you, general now or extra?
The general, no danger of me being
I
extra.
didn't know you're going so fast. I never could. You'll be extra before we know it.
Alan asked me if I wanted to take the extra right then, but I just didn't think I was up to it, so.
You'll get it.
That'll be
Okay, well, let's go ahead and take a vote then. Everybody in favor of accepting these folks into the club?
Aye.
Aye, aye.
Okay, anybody opposed? Then congratulations, you're all members. Okay, so that takes us on to, I guess, old business, new business, whatever. We're working kind of without an agenda tonight here. Bruce, why don't you give us a report on the school?
I will let I didn't have any students because I didn't have enough for extra. I only had, I think, one student. So, John, you could probably say what you had in tech.
I think George and I had, what, 21? I believe it was 21. And I know a bunch of them got licenses because between the two tests that happened in the last 2 weeks, there's a lot of them on 88 right now testing their radios out. So I know we got some new hams there.
And Ken?
I had 4. We had 1 drop out and 3 passed their general.
Good.
Oh, that's good.
And because I wasn't teaching and because I can't stand not teaching very long, I set up a seminar for people to learn to use the remote control station. So I think I had 4 in the last session and I got 7 this time. So that's going up. Means it's going to get a little crowded on there for a while, but anyway, it's getting people to use it. So that's good.
Good. Okay. Let's see then. Oh, do you want to talk about the situation with the space station?
Yeah, Alex, you want to bring it up? You'll see a picture of Alex Perry.
Oh,
on
there's
here,
Alex. Hi, Alex.
and she's a teacher at Woodson Middle School, science teacher at Woodson Middle School in Hopewell. And you want to tell them the story, Alex?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me. So we were one of the, I think it was about 9 schools and programs that were chosen for the International Space Station contact through ARIS. I know Mr. McAllister had mentioned that he had done it previously with I think the Children's Museum.
Science Museum, yeah.
Science Museum. So yeah, so we're looking for volunteers to help us. So I'm teach at Carter G. Woodson Middle School in Hopewell. And we really focus on, project-based learning and students learning through inquiry and STEAM opportunities. And so we are looking to do some projects with students to introduce them to amateur radio and all the inner workings of radio in general. So we're gonna look to do some projects with them for the 2021-2022 school year. The contact wouldn't be until sometime between January 2022 and June 2022, depending on, NASA and the International Space Station and all that. So I think we had talked about a couple different options for projects. One was modeling using, I think you said like string cans for modeling the waves and the radio, and also where students can use radios where we can work with them to prevent mic fright for when they actually get up there and talk to the astronauts. So that is what we're planning on doing. Projects, we are looking for volunteers. And you, Mr. McAllister, you've done this before, so if you have anything else to add, but that's pretty much it.
We did it for our 100th anniversary in 2016. And there were some things we did that we would never want to do again, and some things that we're looking forward to. So it's going to be kind of fun. We know some of the things that worked fairly well. On the 27th, Alex and I will be going to a conference. Won't surprise you, it'll be Zoomed, with the ARISS folks to talk about what they expect and when they expect it. And we have to do some more paperwork. The requirement of ARISS is that a ham radio group, preferably an organized club, will be their partner. So Alex reached out to us to ask if we would be their partner, and we are. So we're planning to use Telelink, which basically phone patch, because when we did it for the Science Museum, we set up our own station, and we don't ever want to try and do that again. So now, if you know somebody who regularly works the space station and satellites with a good tracking beam, we'll be happy to talk to them. But otherwise, we're going to use phone patch. But we have a lot of stuff to set up. We have to do some teaching there. So after the conference on the 27th, we'll sit down and talk about it. Alex and I and a couple others will talk about it. We'll figure out what we need. We'll need some teachers. We're pretty good with that because we've got that in the club. I'm guessing we'll have some labs with the students, so we'll need some people to do the help with the lab work. And I'd like to find as many hams as I can from Hopewell, Prince George, and Dinwiddie County, because I think these kids ought to see people in their community who are hams. So as we work out more details with ARSS and Alex and us, I'll be reaching out to you all for some volunteers. But if you have any great ideas, you know, my email is w4bru@arrl.net, and I'll be happy to hear from you. So
we can go to QRZ and pull everybody that's in Hopewell with a license.
Yeah. In fact, I think I know a guy who does mapping of that sort of thing. He's got a funny call sign. It's a WV something or other. So I'll probably do that. So thank you, Alex. And you're welcome to stay or go as you choose. But I wanted to meet you here before we got started.
We're excited about working with you. We really are.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anything else on that, Bruce? We just need to start looking for volunteers, right?
Yeah, but I think we need to have that 27th meeting so we can figure out what we need. We need to discuss with Alex. You know, we know some of the programs we did with the kids in the camp, for the Science Museum, and I think she's probably seen some other things from some other groups. They'll have some ideas. They'll assign what is a mentor and something else, Alex. I forgot what it was, but 2 people from the group.
Well, Alex, will the teachers our people that are going to be teaching, will they need to have any kind of background checks or anything in advance to, that we can get prepared for?
I believe any volunteer through Hopewell does have to do a background check. I think if you've done it already through the state, then you should be fine. I'll double check, but that's a good question. I'll check with my principal.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anything we need to do to get ready, it'd be helpful to know that so that we can, we make sure our people know what they're up against.
That'll pass the background test.
Yeah.
That's a great question. I'll check in with that.
Okay, good. All right. Well, thank you. All right. Anybody else got reports for tonight?
Joe Paulson, just wanted to mention for you, ARRL is moving forward with looking to find a replacement for that database to replace the Connect that they screwed up pretty well with. And that's, they don't have a date yet, but they said they're making progress in getting something developed for that. And as far as everything else is going, we've got some de-expeditions that are going to be going out. I'll send a note over to you and you can put it in the email or in the newsletter and so forth. Locally, not much else going on. Still plugging along, with Aries and the education part of it and so forth, because that's come up as a pretty good deal. Around the state, my ASM is doing a good job of working with other clubs to get PR in from all the other clubs and everything, so we can pass it along to everybody so they all know what's going on among the different clubs, because some of them have some really great programs going on. There was one recently put on about this new FCC edict coming out as far as the RF is concerned. And I'll send a copy of that over to you if you want to use it for one of the meetings. And aside from one other personal thing, Rats appointed me the tech committee head. So cross your fingers.
Okay. By the way, but our program tonight is Bruce is going to talk to us about that thing that you just mentioned, the RF checks that we have to make. So,
Yeah, I'll be here till about 7:30 because then we have our monthly Roanoke Division managers Zoom
Okay.
meeting starts at 7:30.
all righty. Well, thank you for that report. Let's see. Do we have any?
One more thing.
Yes.
The newsletter had a slight boo-boo. It said that the testing was tomorrow, and it was actually last Saturday. It was one of the few times in a year where we end up with the second Saturday occurs before the second Friday.
Okay.
So it's a minor oops, and we'll make sure it doesn't happen again. So if anybody's expecting to have testing tomorrow, you missed it.
You might want to put it on the website quick. Just in case anybody.
It's on the website already.
It's all right on the website. Okay. Yeah.
Lauren just sent a chat and said she wanted to know what we had any field day plans.
Yeah, I was getting to that. That was going to be my next thing that I brought up. What are we doing about field day? Has anybody?
Rats is going to have their field day, so if you want to, get a hold of somebody with them, if you want to do some operating or you want to help or whatever else, give them a call.
Okay, are they still doing it at the same playground where they always did?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great, good. So I guess I'll go ahead and give them a call and see.
Yeah. So I think that they were planning on a multi-club field day this year, like they've done in the past.
Okay.
And it's going to be at the same place, like Joe said.
Yeah.
Laurel Park Recreation Area.
Right. I'm a member of RATS too, so I'll go ahead and call over there tomorrow, see what I can find out. All right. Any other reports? No other reports? Oh, wait, let's see. Oh, thanks. Okay. I just saw a text message coming from Lauren. All right. Anybody got show and tell tonight? Well, I have something I can show y'all that I'm kind of found was interesting. Let me scoot over to my workbench and grab it. I got a thing from the ARRL a while back saying that I had a $10 credit for something or other and that I could use it in their bookstore. So I went to the bookstore and I had most of the books that they were offering, but I didn't have this little item. And this is a kit. When you buy it, you get a coil of wire and you get a toroid. You get a little box to put it in and you get some wire. And if you follow the directions, it makes an all-band end-fed antenna. So this past, what was it, a couple of days ago, we stretched this out, hung it off of a tree and tested it out. And it sure does actually work with a 1.15 SWR on 40, 20, 15, and 10 meters. So I didn't test it on the other band, 12 and all that, but if you need a good antenna for, parks on the air or anything that you want a temporary antenna, this seems to be a good $50, I think it cost, item that is pretty easy to build. It took me about 20 minutes to assemble the toroid and put the box together. So if anybody's looking for a cheap, efficient, effective antenna to use on a temporary basis, I recommend it.
How long is the wire?
20 meters. 20 meters long.
Okay. 67 feet, I guess.
Yeah. And it tells you that the wire, the piece of wire they give you is 21 meters long, and by the time I adjusted it down, I think we probably took about 3 feet of wire off of it to tune it. Okay, anybody else got anything?
John,
Yes,
I'd like to make an announcement.
sure.
The Radio Builders Group, which has been meeting via Zoom, for the last year or so, we're going to start up again. We're going to have a meeting this next Tuesday. I sent the notice out already to the people that I have on my list. Anybody who's interested would like to come. Well, the meeting's going to be in person. So we're asking all those people who have had their vaccinations, to join us. And if you're not on the list and you had your vaccination and would like to come, send me an email at k4zut.ham. k4zut.ham. My tongue is kind of twisted here. I can't even say my own call sign. We're going to get together in my garage here and talk about a number of projects. There are some new things that I have found to build, and there are also, I'm sure, a number of people that have built something that they would like to show. Or like myself, you build something and it doesn't work the first time, So it's always good to have, some other heads involved, to help you figure out what you did. Usually a cold solder joint or you make silly novice mistakes oftentimes. So anyway, we're hoping that we can get together and. I'd like to see people, their actual flesh, for real, rather than, on the screen. And like I say, if you have not joined us before, or if you didn't get my email and you're on the list, contact me, k4zut.ham at gmail.com.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll definitely try to plan to be there, and I hope a number of people will. I think it'd be great if we could all get together again. I'd really like to start having in-person and Zoom at the same time, club meetings again too. So we're gonna have to try to figure out if we have a place to meet, or if we have to find a new place to meet. But I think it's important that we start getting together in person now that things are kind of calming down. Yeah, Dwayne.
Another meeting I belong to, they're going to be doing a outside meeting tomorrow at Bon Air.
Okay, at the church?
Yes, at Bon Air UMC.
Interesting. I have to look into that. Maybe we can end up having our garage sale.
Well, a lot of churches can do things outside, just can't do them inside. That's one of the issues.
Yeah. Well, we'll check into it and see what we can get going again. All right. So if there's any other business tonight before we go to our program? Yeah, Steve.
Don, no business, but a quick show and tell.
Okay.
I like antique shops, junk shops. This is a Lionel manufacturing telegraph key for those of you who like a little bit of CW. Now it was not in this condition when I picked it up. It actually says the Lionel Manufacturing Company on the indent printed in the base, and it's also on the base of the telegraph key. For those of you who are familiar with model railroads, the Lionel Company made model trains, and during the war, they decided to make telegraph keys. So frequent your local antique shops. Every now and then you'll find a real prize. So I was quite happy with this treasure, but it took a little time to buff it out and clean it up, but it was well worth the effort.
Good deal. Yeah, I'll learn code on a key just like that.
Yeah. Yep. Here's the one my father gave me.
Oh, wow.
When I was in 4th grade. And for those of you back, for some of you younger folks, I was in fourth grade in 1956 or 1957. So this was my first key that my father gave me.
Sweet.
I had that same key in 1972 when I got my novice.
This has been a faithful friend, and
Yeah.
it was a good way to learn code. And now, of course, my father has long since passed, and I cherish it simply because it was something that he gave to me.
Great, great. That is cool. Okay, anything else? If not, we'll move on to turn the floor over to Bruce. Bruce, it's all yours.
Okay. Well, all of you got your antenna, your power output radiation exposure thing done for May 3rd, right? It's actually May 3rd, 2023. It was a little confusing, some of the stuff that came out. But anyway, so we decided just to take a look at it and see what was involved. And it actually is not so bad, unless you've got a complicated antenna system, a real antenna farm, or like me, live in the ghetto and have neighbors real close by. You don't have any real problem with it. But I'll show you how to figure out whether or not you have a problem. I'm going to show you a fairly simple calculator, and Ken is going to chime in and show you a more comprehensive one, which is good for some of our uses. So I'm going to bring this thing up, and I'm going to go into share. And let me square it away here. It's always interesting to try and get all of this working. Here we go. All right, so this is how not to irradiate your neighbors. And so I'll have to tell you that this is preliminary. I decided to try it because I heard a lot of people talking about it, and got myself some surprises. I had looked at the requirements before, just briefly, because I thought I wanted to see if I could get some power. And my first look at it said, no, I'm not going to do 1,000 watts for my place. So, but I never looked at it further. I wished I had, because I learned some things about it. You won't have a problem with it unless someone rats you out to the FCC. So be nice to your neighbors. And it's usually only a problem if you live in an area like I do, or you run a kilowatt. And the deadline is May 2023. Now, the FCC is not going to ask you to send it in. But if someone raises the issue that they think you've got something wrong, then you need to be able to show that, in fact, you've done the test and you know you're okay. So, it's worth doing it. Now, this is the table we used to go by, and you probably took it in your tests, telling you what frequencies, and this was the exemption that we hams used to have. If you didn't exceed these wattages on these bands, you didn't have to check it. But I bet every one of you who runs an amplifier, a 1,000-watt amplifier, has probably checked it, right? I don't hear anything. Okay. The easiest way to work at it is to check with this little calculator I'm going to show you, 10 meters and VHF. If you don't have a problem there in terms of distance of your antenna from your neighbors, then you don't have a problem. So that's all you really do to start with. I put on the website, and I have here on this presentation, which I will also put on the website, a set of references to look at. There's a really good 1999 ham radio article on QST article on it. So I'm going to demonstrate it first. I'm going to show you the simple calculator that's taught out by the Lake Washington Ham Radio Club. And if you go to the ARRL site for RF exposure, they show you this. And the thing I use for checking my distance to the houses around me is I use Google Maps. They have a distance measure. A question? No? Okay. All right, so let's start off with the calculator. That's taking a little while to come up with it. And here I have fiber all the way in. There we go. All right, so it's pretty simple. You specify the wattage. I'll do 100.
Bruce, we just see the demonstration screen still.
Oh, interesting how that seems to work.
Yeah.
So you didn't see the website. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll do 100 watts. Interesting. It won't take my typing.
Mm.
And this is Windows 10. I'm used to having little odd problems with other things, but okay. Oops, 100 watts. You can specify the kind of duty cycle. Because I'm looking for trouble to see if I have a problem in my system, I'm going to make the worst case for 10 meters. So the worst case is things like FM or RIDI or this one down here, carrier, worst case, PSK, that sort of thing. You can make whatever assumptions you want here, okay? And then the antenna gain. I'll show you in a second about how to find out what the gain of your antenna is. Mine has about 2 dB gain, and I'm going to work at 10 meters because that's the one that has the greatest constraint. Now, if you've got a horizontal antenna, you should probably include ground reflections, which does make it worse, but it's probably good for a test. So I'm going to do the calculation. So you got two environments you got to be concerned about. The controlled environment is around your house. What they're basically saying is if you want to fry the brains of your family and your pets and your kids, that's okay. That's your right. What you may not do is fry the brains of your neighbors, which is the uncontrolled environment. So if my neighbors are closer than 7 feet, then I got a problem with 100 watts on 10 meters. It turns out one of my neighbors is just about 7 feet between my antenna and their inside of their house. So I could just barely squeak this one in. But that's what you check on is do I have a problem? If I don't have a problem in 10 meters, I'm probably okay. Now, when I run VHF, my base station can only do 50 watts. I usually don't do 50 watts, but I'll do that. I'll say it's FM. I'm doing 145 megahertz. It's a vertical, so I don't have ground reflections. So we'll see what that does. Okay, no problem in the uncontrolled environment. So this is a real quick way to see if you got an issue. Now, if you got 1,000 watts and you're doing single sideband and you got this kind of gain at 10 meters, well, I'm still okay, it appears. Oh, ground effect. Okay. So I'm too close to my neighbors to run a kilowatt, okay, at this frequency. So that's what you get. That's the way you can check it quickly. But if you check it quickly, you'll probably find you got no problem. Most of you don't live as close to your neighbors as I do, so you won't have that problem. All kinds of other assumptions you can make, but you can see how that part works.
Bruce?
Yes.
Question. If you change the transmit time from 5 minutes to something less than maybe 3 minutes, does that change the amount of radiation in the calculate?
Probably. You want me to try it?
Yeah.
Watch this, man. Fast. And if you're a real rag chewer, you go on and on and on and on. you got a little bit more of a problem, but not much.
Yeah, so if you know, like especially with your neighbors, if your transmission is shorter, there's less effect on them. Your calculation saying
Right.
right?
There's less accumulated radiation. Yes.
Yeah.
Is taking in consideration height?
I wasn't in this case. You can if you want to. What you really need to do, yes, you can. Yeah, it actually takes into consideration the gain that they will see based upon their location. If I do single sideband, I'm going to go back to maybe 10 minutes, 5 minutes and 10 minutes. If I go back to single sideband, it turns out that my antenna, I think, I've got to do some work on it, has 8 dB gain north-south. So you can see that's a bit of a problem. Well, still not a problem with my neighbors, but I do have a problem when I get into, which I love to do, digital. I do have a problem with digital, 14 feet. But of course, when I run digital, I usually run no more than 40 watts. So you really can play with this thing. You can see how fast it is. You really can play with this thing and figure out if you have a problem and where is it.
But if, Bruce?
Yes.
But if you're running digital, the transmission time is not 5 minutes. But what are you talking about? 15 seconds or something like that.
If I'm running JS8, it's about 2 minutes transmit and 2 minutes receive.
Yeah. But like FT8 or something like that, be very short.
Yeah, but FT8's what, 30 seconds each direction? And what ends up happening when people run FT8 is they basically put it on automatic and it just makes contacts back and forth. So it's probably about 2 minute transmit, 2 minutes receive, one after the other as it goes down the list. With JS8 call, you send out a heartbeat and you send that out once, but any other things you do, you have to send yourself. You send a QSO, if you type in a message, that goes out in 1 minute bursts. So again, you can look at how you use it and figure out if you have a problem. Most of you are not going to have a problem with people being closer than 12 feet, right? So then if you do think you have a problem, then what you could do, and my problem was 8 dB of gain. Oh yeah, 8 dB of gain, okay? 40 watts, not any problem. 100 watts is a problem. So I got 18 feet. That's my worst case. All right, so let me show you the other thing you can use in Google Maps. You can use the measurer, and many of you probably are familiar with it.
Bruce, I've got a question before you get to the map.
Okay.
How do you figure the decibel? Because I don't know how to do that yet. So how would I figure the decibels for the gain?
The gain?
Yeah.
Well, if they say it's 2.3 dB gain, you do it like this. Just type it in.
Yeah. What if I have an antenna that doesn't give the dB gain, the dBi for that?
Yeah, I'm going to show you some of that in a second. It would be useful for me if I could go on and show you the distance measuring, and then I'll go back and show you that. Is that okay?
That's fine. That's fine. Okay.
Just because when I'm on the web, it's easier for me to. The problem is the share thing up here is in the way of pushing the button. There we go. All right, so let me take you down here to the ghetto. Here we go. Yeah, we're getting closer. Ah. All right. So this is my place. Well, let me give you the picturesque view. You can see this neighbor needs some work done on their roof.
Yeah.
But so I want to measure my antenna is a rectangle above my roof, suspended above my roof. So you can't get really close measures. I wouldn't trust them, you know, for the 3 or 4 feet. I do that with a tape measure. But I want to know if my 18 feet will irradiate into my neighbors across the street, because I have a north-south bias on my antenna. So what you do is you right-click, and you get this thing called measure distance down here. You click it, my antenna stops right about here. And this is my closest neighbor right here. Look down in the bottom, they're 110 feet away. Don't think I got a problem. The other neighbor that might be an issue would be the one back here. So I can, and my antenna ends right about here. This is my closest neighbor back here. Let me get rid of this one. Ah, all right.
What about the people on either side of you? Did you hear about them?
No, those I measure with a tape measure. They're
Okay.
so close. Yeah.
Okay.
They're. This is the closest neighbor, the one to the west, and he is, by my measure, 7 feet from my antenna to his rooms. It's about 9 feet to this house over here. This one has a little baby in it. I don't want to hurt up. You know, these people are kind of old, so what the heck? But they got a little baby here, so I don't want to mess them up.
Yeah, I'll remember that. That's good.
She's a sweet little thing. Her name is Hannah.
FCC won't care. Yeah.
You're going to hell, Bruce.
Yeah, my humor is going to get me one of these days. But I love laughing. It just kind of keeps me going.
Fair enough.
Okay, so I'm going to go from here to here. That's 52 feet. So basically, if I got a north-south bias, I'm not, even with my 8 dB gain, I'm not going to mess anybody up here. Now you are supposed to measure to the sidewalk, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. Okay, so let me take you back to all right, so I showed you the demonstration, the two things I wanted you to see, which is how to use the simple calculator and how to, you've seen, you used to Google Maps, but you might not have tried using the distance measurer. You know, I think it's probably accurate 3 or 4 or 5 feet. I've noticed looking at the detail in there that there are some things that are off. I can tell they're off by 3 or 4 feet in the projection. So that's fine. I wouldn't use it to measure between the two houses, but going across the street, any decent measure, I think you should be fine with that. And if you want to kind of document your situation, a little CYA, you can of course take screen snapshots of those things when you put the measures up there. Okay, duty cycle, you probably know all this. These are the ones that you use. This is again part of the QST article in terms of what has the higher duty cycles. So I'm mostly doing single sideband, not with processing, and then I'm doing digital modes. Those are the two. I do some FM voice on repeaters, but because of my location, I'm using like 5 watts. So, you know, I'm no issues there. Here's the controlled versus the uncontrolled. I think we talked about that. Decibel thing is kind of confusing. You're putting them in dBi, Any of you who have your extra license want to explain what DBI is? What the I is? Okay, you had to take that in the class, right?
Free space.
Yeah, it's decibels related to an isotropic antenna, which doesn't exist. It's a mathematical construct. You know, some of these engineers just take too much math and they just can't get away from it. So anyway, that's a theoretical antenna that radiates equally in all directions. Well, any real antenna has a bias to it. It will not radiate equally in all directions. So immediately by focusing the radiation, you get gain. So the gain that we sometimes see is dBd, which is decibels compared to a dipole antenna. And the dipole antenna is 2.5 dBi gain. Now, when you see an advertisement for this great little vertical to stick on your car and it says it has a 2 dB gain, what would you guess they're comparing it to?
Whatever gives them the highest number.
Yeah, dBd. Yep. So that's the way they play it. So your question when you see the advertisement is, well, dB what? You know, there are some other ones that you can see. This is out of that font of all knowledge called Wikipedia. You can look it up yourself. But anyway, most of the time we're dealing with dBi, but you want to check it sometimes to see what's going on. And you know, so yeah. Okay. Now here's the radiation pattern thing. When you're going through and trying to figure out what's going on, I found the easiest way is to get a visualization and a statement of what the gain is. So I did a search of antenna radiation pattern and named my antenna. And it gave me what the gains are. And you can see them here. If you put in that gain and you have zero problems in terms of where you are versus your neighbors, you're done. You put the gain into the calculator, it says you're good, you're good. Unfortunately, I'm not quite so good in some directions, but this is how you look for it. This is a standard dipole. Basically, it takes the round part and squishes it into a donut shape. If I were running this dipole with it strung north-south, my gain would be east-west, and I might have a problem. Here's the G5RV down the bottom. You can see the blue color is the pattern for 80 meters, and the green one is the pattern for 15. Now, if you have the item on the left over there, on the right, I'm sorry, which you will recognize from taking the extra test, right? That's a gain. That's a fairly high gain beam. And if you're running that with 1,000 watts and you're putting it to your neighbor's house, you might be causing some damage. So that's where you want to begin looking at it. If you get in the 1,000 watt sort of area, 500 to 1,000 watts, you're running a beam, you really want to check what the distance will look like off the end of this beam, and then see if it's spun around by your neighbor, you're going to cause any problems. But most of us don't have that kind of a life anyway, so we're okay. Any questions at this point? So, this, by the way, is the way my antenna is set up above my roof, rectangular. It's gain north-south. These are a bunch that I ran on my place, and I've already kind of shown you all this. So I'm going to, and I showed you the measurements. This is the other one. They say that you have to be uncontrolled areas or any place the public will be. And that includes sidewalks and streets. So I went back and studied up and took a remedial course on high school trigonometry.
That looked familiar.
And got the rough height of my house and the distance from the front to the sidewalk, and used this my remedial course in high school algebra to figure out that it's 33 feet from my antenna to the sidewalk. So I'm not going to violate that one either. So that kind of covers all my bases as far as that goes. So this is my result. I showed you what that was. I'd like to do some more and maybe do some more power. So I'm going to redo my antenna model. I had done it back, but I was only looking for what the maximum gain was on 40 meters. I wasn't really looking for any kind of side lobes and what they're going to do. So I'm going to go back and go through and do the model again. And then when I get stuck, I'm going to give Robert a call and say, hey, help, Robert. But anyway, I want to look for the highest gain pattern I've got and figure out where it's aimed and whether it's safe. And also to figure out if I can up my power. If I can put a 200 or 300 watt amp on there at certain bands, I wouldn't mind doing that. So you can get these more complex situations where you want to do that. And if that happens, you want to use a more thorough calculator, which Ken's going to take you through, because this is the one he used to do the tests. By the way, he ran the tests a couple of years ago for the church where we have the remote control station. We didn't want to fry any of the parishioners or the pastor, that sort of thing. So he's already done that test. He's going to show you how he did it. Ken? You got to come off mute, Ken.
That would help. Let me share this here. All right. This is the old table. Bruce showed you this table. Basically, I put this in just to give you an idea of why did this table come about and why almost every radio you buy, the manufacturer is very nice and they cut the power that your radio will actually put out on 2 meter and 70 centimeters if it will do that. So this is the calculator that I used. I'll show you the results. Anywhere down in here, in other words, in your HF frequencies, your distance is, let me move this over a little bit more there. The distance here is from a half a foot to just about 3 feet at 6 meters.
Hello? Kathleen, did you pocket dial me?
Okay. So anyway, they cut this so that everything stayed in that general range. And then on 2 meters up here, they cut you to 50 watts. And the distance that for uncontrolled is 5.7, so about 6 feet. And the same thing basically for 70 centimeters, even though you get up a few more. So this is just to show you why they did it. And I'll talk more about it, this particular calculator in a second. This is my radio. And again, all the bands, doing single sideband, doing FM here. Well, when we go to the results, and I run LMR 400 to everything, 30 feet, 2 meter, running. This gives us a distance of 7 or 8 feet and 7 feet, basically, that I have to be away if I'm running 100 watts. My radio actually won't run 100 watts, but if I were, that's what I'd have to worry about. If I run full power, 1500 watts, going to the antenna, I need to be 30 feet, 31 feet, and 25 feet away. Because of where this antenna was placed, this was not a problem for me. 6 meters, I had a beam, which had a decent gain. If I run 100 watts, I had to be 7 feet away. And with that same gain, if I run full power, I got to be 34 feet away. and my estimate was 30 feet away. I'm not safe because I'm 4.8 feet over. But the other part that was good news is I don't even have a power amplifier, but this was just to show you the difference. Again, here's going into my dipole antenna, coming into all of the things at 100 watts. Again, 4 feet maximum, 19 feet. And this is without the beam. This is just on the dipole itself. I need to have 19 feet of clearance. And so not an issue. This is the calculator that I did for the church. Here's the transmitter, all the frequencies at 100 watts. It really cuts it back to this. And then I did one for digital modes, FT8. How bad is it? The antenna, we have this one, and then we have the long wire that has a 2 dB gain. And so the results here are, worst case is at 6 meter. We got to be 6.5 feet away. On 2 meter, which are actually these values, again, 6 feet here. And then going to the long wire, again, we have this in digital mode. So we got to have 9 feet. So going to digital rather than single sideband, 6.5 feet to just barely over 9 feet. So we're doing pretty good. As Bruce said at the church, part of this is over an open courtyard. And then the other part that is actually over the church is, what was it, Bruce? It's a foyer type thing. So there's like a 2-story ceiling.
Yeah, it's a 2-story foyer. So that particular area, no one's going to really be very close to it. So we're pretty good at 9, even at 9 feet. And I think anybody who runs FT8 at 100 watts probably should be spanked. So
yeah. So it's just to give you the worst case in this case. The other thing that we do, and we did it for a whole nother reason, but we do not allow you to transmit on the remote station during, I think it's 8 a.m. on Sunday till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. They can have their church service. Actually, we did it so that when they had their church service, we do not bother their microphones through anything because they use wireless. And then somebody was concerned, but because of that, we absolutely do not cause any problems for the church parts.
Ken, where do you input the information to get?
I will show you that in just a second here on this.
Okay.
And then the last one I have here is if you have an HT, which I have an HT that broadcasts 2 meters and 70 centimeters, 5 watts power, it's FM. And the results are basically the uncontrolled exposure is 2.5 feet or 2 feet. So if you stretch out your arm and make somebody stand that far away from you, you're fine. So that's this. Now, your question is a super one, and I'll show you this. When you come to this site here, and this is the site that I use, and we'll have that out on the website after this. First time you come, it looks like this. It says you need to add a transmitter. So I'm going to add a transmitter. This is a name. It makes, no idea. It doesn't equate to anything. It's just the name that you want to call it. So we're going to call it test. It says, okay, you need to add a band. What band are you going to be transmitting on? Well, I'm going to be transmitting on 40. I'm going to be doing single sideband, no processing. This you leave alone. You save it. And it says, would you like to do another one? Yeah, I like to do 20. Single sideband. And we'll do one more just for fun, 10 meters. And we're going to run FT8. Put that in. Oh, I didn't save the 20 meter. Okay, let me go back and we'll do the, put the 20 back in. 20, single sideband, save. All right, click the, we're done. You click here to say, I'd like to add an antenna. You get to put its name in, whatever you'd like to call it. My first. Now you get to say, how far away do you think everybody's going to be from this antenna? And this just tells you when you put it in, whether or not you exceed that. That's what it's actually calculating. So it's my first, it's going to be a dipole. So we're going to put on ground reflection is available. What band? Well, it's going to be on 40. And that's the typical gain for a dipole. So we're fine. We're going to do it on 20. Same thing. And we're going to do it at 10 meter. Same thing. So those are the three. And then we have to make our connections. So we're going to connect the antenna to the transmitter. That's what it's really asking for. So we're going to test to my first, because I only have one transmitter and one is, so it fills it in. Don't have any tuner. And so it's going to ask, what kind of wire are you going to connect these with? And you have all these choices. So we're just going to be, we'll just use RG58. How long is it to the antenna? We'll say 20 feet. Save it. I've made my connection. I can now see my results. So on 40 meters, you got to be a foot, 2 feet, foot and a half, 3 feet on 20 meters, and on 10 meters, doing digital, you got to be 8.6 feet, call it 9 feet away. So that's how easy it is to enter it. You enter it through these three, how you make your connections. Let me go back to my machine just to show you transmitters, one at 100 watts, one at a max. Antennas, I got a 2 meter antenna, a 6 meter beam with the 7.2 dBi gain, and then my dipole, typical dipole. The connections from the transmitter via 30 feet to the 2 meter, the full goes to the same thing. The 6 meter has 50 feet because of where it's at, and full to the same thing, and then to the dipole and the dipole. So full and the real machine going are the connections, and that's how you make it. Now, if we go back to the one we just did, showed you the results, this is what makes this thing to me extremely worthwhile. And that is, the FCC says that you're supposed to do this test sometime between now and 2 years from May 3rd. The law took effect on May 3rd of this year, but you don't have to abide by it until 2 years later. Hence some slight confusion. But if this is my system that we just did, I want to export it. If I copy this, now don't try to make sense out of it. It has all the information. If I copy this and save it in a text file, and I usually put in my text files, I'll show you. I put this and the address of the website, and I save it. when I come back, let's say I managed to go out and I spent some money and I upgraded my thing. So I would come back, I'd log back in, I'd take, and I'm going to just copy it. I'm going to reset all of this so it's cleared out and we're back to where we were. I'm going to say, okay, I want to paste that back in. I want to import it. Here's my configuration as it used to be. But I happen to buy a power amp that puts out 500 watts. So I edit it. And I edit it again, put in my 500 watts, save it, go look at my results. Okay, now I've moved out to 19 feet here. And again, I would come here, I'd say I'd like to export it. I would then copy this and save it. So the idea of this is if you did it once, great, but then you bought new equipment, and by the rules of the FCC, you got to do it again with the new hardware. So this gives you a way to save this and very quickly bring yourself back up to where you were. This is not, for everybody. I like it, as I said, because you can do it. But as I say, even for an HT. Now, the question becomes, the good old FCC. I covered what I wanted to show you. This is the typical FCC law. This is actually out of the new thing that just passed. It says, hey, a single RF source will be exempt from having to do the RF exposure evaluation under these 3 circumstances. The RF source transmits at no more than 1 milliwatt of average power. That's very low, so they exempted you. And then it says an RF source normally operates real close to the body in frequency range, basically from 300 to 6 gigahertz. So that's, for most people, 70 centimeters and above. And trans no more than the average power thresholds result of the formula we adopted, Wait a second, I have to then decide if I have exceeded the threshold of some formula to verify that I am exempt from having to be evaluated, i.e., I've got to do a calculation to see if I'm exempt from doing a different calculation. You might as well calculate the exposure rather than try this. And then this is the same other thing. It's talking about how close you are, the near term, which is within pi, or wavelength divided by 2 pi. So it's just the FCC goes out of their way. There is one place that says, hey, if you're running a mobile, you don't talk much, so you might be exempt, but you might want to check it. So my thing to comment to everybody is go ahead and run the check, whichever calculator you prefer. Try to save the results so that the next time that if you have to run it, you're okay. At least you know what you had done the first time. I would calculate it for every combination of devices that I have, all the transmitters, all the antennas, and have it. So any questions from anybody?
Yes. On your calculation spreadsheet you did for the long wire antenna.
Yeah.
Looked like you used the same gain for all the bands.
Yes.
But as that long wire becomes more than half a wavelength, as you go up in frequency, it's going to have more gain. you know, to have lobes and all this, that, and other. And I guess you need to figure out what the direction of
Yeah.
the lobe is.
Yeah, to be a whole lot more accurate, you would need to determine what the gain is at the highest lobe. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, I did that on my 80-meter dipole that I use on all the bands. And at 10 meters, it has almost 11 dB of gain if you're at the right lobe. So, you know, it could be significant.
Yeah,
on height
so
and length.
it's worthwhile to basically take an antenna tuner and find out what's going on and to model it and see where you fall on that. And Bruce talked about modeling your antenna to know what you're doing. So it's the one, I guess all of the good things is the FCC is never going to ask you for it unless somebody, as Bruce says, rats you out. And then all you have to do is say, yeah, I did it, because they don't even say you have to keep it. I would keep it so that I could say, yes, here it is. And then they could say, well, you didn't take this into consideration or something. You go, oh, I'm very sorry. And, you know, go back to it. The whole idea of this, and the reason that the FCC, if you read through a lot of the commentary about why this happened and everything, different services had different rules of whether or not you were exempt, what you had to test and what you didn't. And even depending upon, in some cases, the same frequency and power could be in two different services. And one you had to do it and one you didn't. You know, you didn't have to do the evaluation. So this was nothing more than the FCC saying, hey, every service always has to do the evaluation. Verizon right now is not happy about this because they're putting 5G antennas over on telephone poles and, you know, anything.
Got one right out here in the corner. Yep.
Anywhere they can stick one. And the FCC says, oh, by the way, you have to measure the RF exposure that you're putting people at. And Verizon was not happy about it. So, because they're the big pusher of 5G right now. So it's basically trying to set a level playing field so that all radio services are abiding by the exact same rules. That was the whole idea.
Oops, sorry.
It's all right.
I meant to take you to the last couple of slides. They're not terribly important, but I made them, and so I got to show them to somebody.
I saw them.
Yeah, well, okay, so you know, it's to keep from frying your neighbors. I found it useful to go through it, and you don't have to do it until May 2023. We will put this this thing out as a PDF on the website. But these are the key things you want to contact. Somebody asked me if I could send it to them and put it in the chat. I probably could, but I don't know how. So that's where we are. And I guess we've covered any other questions people have got. Do you want to talk about?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious, working this out, if you find all your distances are safe and you're okay, does that still mean you probably are not interfering with anybody else's TV or radio or phone? I mean, could you possibly be doing that as long as you're okay here?
No.
Yeah, this has
two different things.
This has to do with radiation getting,
yeah,
you know, this is like the microwave, right? It gets the water molecules spinning.
Yeah, okay.
You don't want to get the water molecules splitting.
So this will not, yeah, this doesn't guarantee you not interfering with someone else's reception.
You could still interfere with someone's radio or phone. I mean, and some of the stuff, some of those receivers they have out there for some of this gear is such cheap junk that anything would interfere with them. You could turn on an electric razor and it would interfere with them. So that has nothing to do with interfering with people's radios. It has to do with interfering with their brains.
Yeah, I know it's for safety. I understand about the burns from the RF. I've got that for sure. I just was wondering, is, you know, in addition, would it also mean that you weren't interfering with anyone else?
What it does mean is if they get angry at you and they decide to raise Cain about it, you said, look, you got no exposure here. You need to fix you need to buy a decent TV set, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And most of the time, if you don't know how to fix it or help fix it for your neighbor, find another ham, and there are people who know how to put filters on, determine which filter is necessary to clear up the problem for them.
Ken? Yeah, last week, the ARL education group, I forget what it's called, they did one on Iaf. They did a seminar on Iaf interference, and it was very well done. Things you could do to find out or to find the interference, and it was worth looking at it. It's probably about 40 minutes, and it's on their site now.
Good.
Great.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Ken, Bruce, Jerry, there's ARRL also has a calculator that's real easy to use on there.
Well, the one I'm showing you is the ARRL one.
All
They
right.
actually use the Lake Washington one as theirs.
Okay, there's another one on there too. I found it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, QRZ also has it. There's section on there, and it's all does the same thing. But if someone's looking, there are a number of places you can find these things.
Well, I will probably adopt the one that Ken was showing they did for the church, because I do really want to figure out what's going on with my antenna. And I would like to be able to, now that the ionosphere is treating us better, I'm beginning to get some distance. One of the problems I have with I know I have a north-south bias because I'm always talking to people up in the upper Midwest and down in Florida, that sort of thing, not hearing much of anybody from Europe, not hearing much of anybody from California. So I want to figure out what I can do to give myself some better shots at it, but I want to do it without frying dear little Hannah's brain. So I got to figure out how I'm going to do that. And that's, so I'm going to be modeling this thing, and I'm going to see what kind of antenna choices I've got.
Yeah, one other comment that I want to make. The FCC, the actual exposure, how much radio frequency emission power are you allowed to give to a person? Those numbers did not change. The only thing that changed is they said, you've got to do the actual calculations. You can't use this power table and say, since I'm doing less than 500 watts, I don't need to measure it. You still need to do it. So as Bruce said, the most problem area for most people is either going to be in the 10 and in the VHF area. That's going to be your problem area. But realize the FCC says you got to do everything that you do, not just the problem area, and prove that the problem area is fine, or the most likely problem area. So you still have to do all of the bands that you do at whatever. So
I have a question. Bruce, you Ken too. Y'all were saying that the amount of power that you're showing going into the antenna was, say, 500 watts. According to what I read in the FCC, I mean in the ARL stuff, you can deduct for fittings, and you don't necessarily have your full power going into the antenna.
Yeah, just a second. Both of, I think even the one Bruce had gave you, if you look at this, here's the one I did. Here's the 100 watts coming out. Here's the line loss. There was, because I said it's 30 feet of this, or 20 feet of this cable, it calculates what the line loss is, how much gain, the effective power, and on down. When I do here, the connections, when I make the, I can add other losses. In other words, if I know I've got 4 connectors and each one drops it 1 dB, I can put that in here and show. Yeah. If you leave it at 0, the good news is this is the worst case scenario.
Right.
So
well, I don't think you have to boil the ocean on this thing. I think you can look for So likely problems, and if you don't have the likely problems, you're okay.
Yeah.
But if you're in a situation like I am, where I'm really close to my neighbors, I probably need to boil the ocean.
So,
Question?
sure.
So to my understanding that the businesses like Verizon and stuff have to submit, but we don't have to unless there's a problem?
Correct.
Yes.
And even if there's a problem, all they're going to do is ask you if you did it and can you maybe prove it. And so that's why I say print this off, save it, stick it in a folder with your license or, something of that nature.
I'm amazed they don't make you fill out a form and send it to them.
Nope. No, this is where they're going to be. This is the FCC. We've had a complaint. And so, yeah.
So I have a long wire antenna 60 feet in the air at 100 watts. How could that hurt anybody?
It shouldn't be able to, but you still have to see. Here's the good news. Shouldn't hurt. You're trying. You still have to do the calculation so that you have evaluate. In other words, the evaluation you're required to do between now and 2 years. And then if you are not in compliant, then you have to make adjustments to your site. And that's always been the case.
Is there a way to back into the calculations so you could put in the antenna height and the other information and let it tell you what the maximum wattage allowed would be?
What you're talking about is what the antenna model looks like, what the gain of the antenna is like. And sometimes you can look that up, as I did, by seeing what is standard for that sort of thing. If you've got an odd shaped antenna, as I have, you really have to model it to figure out what's going on.
I would start, if you want to figure it out, I mean, I would start at max power, 1500 watts. What my antenna gain is and say, can I do it? And if the answer is no, then I would sort of use a binary tree search, cut that in half. Okay, can I go above or not in half? And so, with about 4 guesses, you'll narrow it down as to about how much power you can run.
Right. Thanks.
Ken?
Yeah?
Ken, I'm a member of the Radio Society of Great Britain. I like to find out what the enemy's doing over there. They attacked us a few hundred years ago. You never can tell what they might do now. But I get their magazine, and it's very interesting. They also are going through the same thing in terms of evaluating stuff. But they showed one illustration of a V antenna and showing the radiation at the ends of it closer to the ground. It was being much higher. So it sounds like their calculations are much more detailed and complicated than what ours are. So, we're probably lucky, in that, we don't have a little nitpicking things in there. As the British, they like nitpicking, so great for them anyway. But it was interesting seeing that, and they show both ends of it, at ground, near the ground level, as being much, much higher in radiation.
I think you can also expect over the next year or so, you're going to see a lot more articles in CQ and QST and things like that, including probably simplified concepts of what your antenna probably is doing. So I think if you hang in there, you're going to find a lot more help coming at you for doing the calculations. But as I say, you can figure out pretty quickly whether you're likely to have a problem or not. And if you're 50 feet from your nearest neighbor and you can't find anything that goes more than 20 feet out, you're good. So it's going to be fairly quick to figure that out. I don't have anything else. Nobody else has anything. So.
Okay, well, Bruce, thanks for putting that together. I know it was kind of in a short notice. All right, anybody else have anything for tonight before we close up? Bill, you have your hand up. Is it you asking a question or
I
just?
was giving a thumbs up.
Okay.
Say thank you. That was a very good presentation.
Yeah, I think so too. Thank you, Bruce.
Bruce,
Okay, well, then I'll go ahead and ask for a motion to close the meeting if no one else has anything.
so moved.
Okay. Anybody second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, good night, everybody. Thank you for
Night.
attending.
Thank you all.
Good night. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Ken.
Okay, John, stay well.
Bruce.